welcome to Pulled Focus. We are interviewing with the filmmakers submitting for this year's Deep Fried Film Festival as part of a special edition of Pulled Focus. Today we're joined by MJ Dixon, who has a submission called The Thinning Veil. Hi MJ.
Hello, how are you doing?
Good. So tell us about yourself and about the film that you've put in for this year.
I've been a filmmaker now probably professionally probably for about 15 years, but I've done it since I was very young. I think like our whole attitude towards filmmaking in general has just been to kind of go out and do it, and that's kind of the drive that's kept us going for all this time. I think our company is coming up on 17 years we've been established as a production company, which is quite long for a production company in general. We're coming up on about 17 years of just kind of doing things the way that we do them, which is kind of just go out and make this stuff. And The Thinning Veil kind of is, I guess, really a product of that. In terms of every year we make like a Halloween themed movie for our Patreon, and we had a different film planned completely, and it turned out that it was the kind of film we couldn't put together in time for Halloween, and so kind of out of the blue I kind of wrote The Thinning Veil, which was called The Veil when I originally wrote it. It's just kind of like something I knew we could make in a very short period of time. And it's just one of those kind of a bit of a lightning in a bottle situation where it kind of came out way better than I ever expected it would, thanks to the performances and the actors and the location and the lighting and everything just really kind of came together. And so for the first time in kind of quite a long time, we've just kind of started putting it out to festivals, and it got accepted to Deep Fried.
And
really excited about.
You shot this over 4 days?
We wrote it. We wrote it 2 days before we shot. We shot for 1 day, and then cut it on the fourth day. So from writing it to completely finishing the film was 4 days.
So impressive. We're going to have a little look at the film now, so we're going to show a clip of The Thinning Veil.
Yes, I'm looking for Madame Brenda.
Dead are always around us. They're always present. Always just beyond our reach. Always watching. The veil between the living and the dead.
Thank you for that. So what inspired you to make the film?
I think, like I say, we make a Halloween film every year, and so I thought that would be really easy when we started doing it, because I thought there's loads of stuff you can think about for to make films kind of based around Halloween, and but after like the first year we did one about like a scarecrow and a pumpkin patch, and then I was like, oh, like I felt like I had loads of ideas here, and then I was like, so then I started just researching a load of Halloween stuff, the next year, to really kind of try to come up with some cool ideas for some Halloween shorts. And one that I kept kind of landing on was this idea that the veil between the living and the dead is like its thinnest at Halloween, and I thought that's a cool idea for a short film. I just don't know what that story's going to be about or anything like that. Actually, it was a bit more kind of monstery and stuff, but it just needed too many special effects, and it was stuff that we just didn't have time to put together. And so my producer, who's also my wife, said, like, why don't you do that? We'll do that later and do something that's much more simple. And so I went back and thought, that veil idea, I thought that's good, but I have no idea what that film is. And so, like, we were about 4 days from. We needed to shoot to get it done for Halloween for our Patreon, and so we had about 4 days to kind of pull something together. And so, I kind of sat there one night and said, right, like, what's this film? And I just sat there, I think over the space of about 6 hours, and wrote this script, handed it to my wife, and I kind of, as I was writing it, I had an idea of who I thought would be good to cast in it. And then by the time the morning was there, I think, by the next morning, I'd had a message from the actress who I'd thought about saying I'd really love to do it, and I was like, oh, like that worked out perfectly. So, but yeah, it's one of those things I've always thought is a really cool idea for a film. Using that idea that the veil is so thin on that kind of night. And I thought, I couldn't remember anything really specific that had ever kind of approached it before. So I thought, okay, this is my opportunity to kind of, I guess, tread some ground that I've never seen covered. And so that's kind of what inspired me to do it, really.
And were there, other than obviously the time restriction getting around Halloween, did you have any other challenges making the film?
I think the big problem was that, so what really happened was we had like one night to shoot the film. So we rented a place to shoot it because obviously, as well, once you start making films, you realise that like your house is not like a place where you can make films, because you tend to be, everywhere you look is like film equipment or posters or something. And so we had to go and kind of rent a place, but then that meant that we had very little time to shoot there. So I think all in all, we arrived at kind of like sunset, and I think we had about 6 or 7 hours to actually shoot the film, and that included everything, including like the outside stuff, and the conversation stuff inside, and so that was, I mean, that's always quite a challenge, but it's something you come up against when you're making low budget stuff, is that you tend to have way less time than you'd like, and so you start to be more picky and careful about your shot choices to make sure you're encompassing as much as you can visually and as little coverage as possible. So that was quite a challenge. I mean, to be honest, it went really smoothly. We had a child at the time who was about 4 months old, and usually that would be a problem, but we kind of we put him on like the bed in this kind of house that we rented. We put him on the bed in the back, and he just fell asleep for like the whole time, which is completely unlike him as well. So even that element of it, which usually would be a problem, we were like, no, he's fine, And it was, I mean, as films go, it was a really good experience. And even the stuff that usually would be really challenging, like the monster effects. We brought in an actor friend of ours who also does a lot of makeup stuff, called Luna Wolf. And she came and did the makeup and everything, and it made the whole thing go much easier than it usually would, because usually it would be either myself or my wife who would have to also do makeup effects and things like that. So just having an extra person there really kind of helped that along. But yeah, I think as films go, it was probably one of the least challenging overall things that we've ever done. Which is nuts, because it kind of, I think it's one of the best things we've ever made. So you'd usually expect a lot of pushback to get such a good result, but I think, we didn't have any of that. We were very lucky.
And are there any other filmmakers that inspired you to make this film, or inspire your work in general?
Well, I mean, I feel like I'm inspired by almost every film that I kind of come in contact with, which is kind of like, I don't know, I think you can take a lot from almost anything you watch, but I mean, generally my style comes a lot from people like John Carpenter, I think, which feels like a bit of a cliche these days, but I mean, it's the kind of films I grew up on, so obviously, his films are the kind of films that I ended up wanting to make when I was young, and so now that I have the opportunity to do that, that's the kind of films that I do try and make. So, but I think Thin and Veil especially, has that John Carpenter kind of vibe, you know, that kind of like there's something in the dark just there that's ready to come and grab you, kind of, you know, that kind of thing. And so, you know, there's that element to it. You know, I think massively Carpenter's especially inspired this particular piece.
And just building the atmosphere, like there's something lurking in the background, or there's
Yeah,
another
yeah.
layer to it.
Yeah, Carpenter always said that, you know, one of the most famous kind of types of horror movie is like the monsters are coming to get you, you know, like, and so I kind of liked that idea that you go and, you know, this girl goes somewhere for information, and the whole time there's this that something's coming, or like, and so I quite liked that. You know, I liked that aspect of it, and that feels very Carpenter-esque, I suppose.
So you've been working in film for quite a while. Some of the filmmakers we've got in, it's maybe like the first or second film that they've completed, as some have been working in the industry a bit longer. So what do you think of the independent film industry in the UK?
I think it's a tough one, really. I mean, it's changed a lot in 20 years. There's a lot more people doing what we do now. When I started, it'd be very, you know, it wouldn't be very often that you'd meet another filmmaker. You know, you'd have to really actively go out looking for other people. We used to have like a meetup in Newcastle when I was younger, where filmmakers would go and meet up with other filmmakers, because it wasn't like you would just be walking around and someone would go, "What do you do?" "I film it." "Me too." But that's kind of what happens now, you know, because it's much cheaper to make films and therefore much more accessible. And I think so that's changed things for the better, because I've always been a big advocate of people should just go out and make stuff. And so the fact that that's easier than ever now is like, you know, that's a really great thing. I think there's a downside of that, is that so much stuff gets made that it's hard to sometimes find the good stuff. You know, because sometimes it gets buried in the sheer amount of content that's out there. So you can make, you know, an award-winning film, but maybe 300 people in total will ever see it, because there's so much competition out there for your eyeballs. And then, you know, yeah. So I think, and there's also, I mean, because anybody can make a film, I think now there's a lot of stuff that just is made that wouldn't ever have been made before, because I think, you know, it used to be you'd have an idea and then there'd be a long quest to get to the point where you could put it on screen, and now someone go, "I've got an idea for a film, I'll pick up my phone and, you know, I'll get my my cousin to stand, you know," and suddenly there's a 3-minute film there, but there's sometimes none of the learning and craft that goes in that, you know, into that beforehand. And so you end up with a lot of product also out there that you know is not of professional quality, I guess. But you know, it's difficult because I don't really want to quantify it like that, you know what I mean? I think everyone should make films no matter what level they're at, but I think just that's the downside of it being massively available, is so much stuff. Anyone can make a film, whether they've got something to say or not, you know. And I think it used to be that quest made you really think, is this worth saying? Is this story worth telling? You know, and now you can just, in an afternoon, pick up a phone and get your cat and make a movie, you know.
Yeah, well, and you see things like on Instagram and TikTok and things, and people are all sort of content focused in terms of marketing. There's more of that that's kind of leaning towards sort of short film as well in some ways, and it's more and more accessible. But as you said, it's like anybody now more than ever is able to kind of pick up the camera and go for it without going through the journey and learning the craft through it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's you know, there's a big shift in how people make films now, because it's really hard to tell a story. Even like The Thin Veil, which is like less than 10 minutes long, but it has a build-up, and it starts slow and it builds up, and expecting people to give that 10 minutes now is a difficult thing. Like, you know, people want to be able to look at their Instagram or TikTok and have a story like that condensed into like a minute, you know, as kind of like a bit of fluff they can see on their way through. And so, in some ways, kind of traditional storytelling is being a little bit put on the back burner for kind of like instant gratification storytelling, if that makes sense.
It's great kind of hearing it in filmmakers' point of views and things as well, because it is, we've seen over the years, like the Deep Fried Film Festival started in 2006, and we've seen changes over the years in the films that come in and the different types of things, and technology's changing all the time as well. So it's totally kind of see the difference working over the time. But the Thin and Veil is going to be part of this year's festival, and was because of COVID and we didn't know what the restrictions would be like, we are doing it online. So why should people watch your film?
I mean, I guess because a lot of work went into it. I mean, I think that's a good starting point. I think to be quite honest, people should just watch independent films because they're made by people who care about making films. I think that's like number one like rule. I think like that should at least give you like a 4-star rating to begin with on like IMDb. It's just you went and made a film, instantly you get 4 stars, because it's hard. It is hard. Even when it's easy, it's hard, and that's the thing. But I don't know, I personally think it's an interesting story. I think the performances in it are really good. Outside of what the work I did on it, I think that everyone else who did work on it, deserves that to be seen. But yeah, I think if you want something that's a kind of short, kind of tight little tale, spooky story, kind of in the vein of like a kind of Halloween campfire story, then like this is the thing for you. And it's, I suppose it's less than 10 minutes long. It's not asking for a lot of time. And I, like I say, personally, I think it's some of the best work we've done, and so I think it's great if people want to spend 10 minutes watching that. So
that's great. Oh, we're looking forward to having it on the screenings. We will include links to your work and everything along with the screenings as well, and look forward to the feedback from the audience. So thank you very much, MJ.
Thank you for having me.
So that was MJ Dixon, who has the film The Thinning Veil on at this year's Deep Fried Film Festival. Thanks for joining us on Pulled Focus, and we'll see you again soon.